Rick, good to see you again. You ready?
Yes, good morning, Keith. Yes, I am.
Good morning. This one is get off the wheel. And when I refer to wheel, Rick, I'm talking about the hamster wheel. And some people think about it as like, going to work every day, punching the clock, clocking out, getting a paycheck and doing this for their whole lives. That's one definition of the wheel, one example. I'm talking about the wheel inside. And that wheel is just being bothered by every little thing that happens, being attached to things, doing things that only cause you suffering, trying to control external things, whether it's in the form of people who are close to your loved ones, your coworkers, people in the community, whether it's situations where it's got to be this way or that way, and just all that obsessiveness. You with let's say your spouse, and the way that they, what their behavior is, and you say to yourself, okay, I am not doing that anymore. I'm stepping back. That's who they are. I'm going to accept it. And then something else happens, and there you all go again without knowing it. You've opened up that hamster wheel, that door, and you're back on it, like being bothered by everything they do and don't do. You do the same thing with coworkers. You're like, okay, I just got off vacation. I just had this nice break. I'm off the wheel. No, take a vacation from yourself. Don't take a vacation from the world. That's your teacher. That's your opportunity. Get back to work. You're bothered by the coworker again. Okay, I guess you're back on the wheel. Your whole life is being on that wheel. And Michael Singer talks about this too. He says you don't even know it. So he says to the hamster, he's like, "How long you been on that wheel?" He said, "My whole life." but I'm getting somewhere. It looks like to me like you're getting nowhere. It's like, well, how long you gonna be on that wheel? I don't know, but I'm getting closer. You're never getting closer because it's not out there in the form of people, in the form of things. It's in here. And when I finally came to that awareness, and like my conscious self was aware of it all the time. When I wasn't distracted by my mind and all the things and problems I was giving it to solve, being bothered by my past and the psyche and all of that. When I became aware, when the light bulb came on, I was like, I'm getting off that wheel. Every once in a while, Rick, I'll see myself, I'll see myself climbing back on. I'm like, hold on. Like, what do we do? It feels like constricted in here. Like I feel like, what's this thing that I'm on? And then I'm like, hold on, dude, you're back on the wheel. Can't do it. Get off the wheel. And so for me, the wheel is this wheel that anything that leads to suffering, anything being trapped in those default settings. And for me, it's internal complaining. It's closing my heart to other people for something that they did or they should have done, or some new rule that I made up about them that they're unaware about. And all those things, once I stopped doing that, taking things personal, identifying who I am with my thoughts and these narratives that I make up on the fly. Uh, all of that to me is defined as being on that wheel, and all it leads to is suffering. It doesn't get anywhere, but it's just filled with suffering every step of the way. So, what do you think about, Rick, with that analogy about getting off the wheel?
Well, that's really a beautiful idea, Keith. Don't you think that um, the pressure that we have to stay on the wheel has to do with ego protection? We're trying to protect ourselves from some harm that we perceive, and that sort of manifests itself in judgment. You know,
Yes,
if we can feel superior to other people or judge other people, it gives us a lift, and that makes us feel more protected. I think you're exactly right. That wheel for me was judgment. I was I still am a master at judging others, and I'm aware of it, so I don't verbalize it, but I still have those thoughts that come up. And I think the way you get past that is you are first aware of it, and then secondly, you realize that that judgment diminishes your own ability to have peace in your life and your own ability to understand that you're part of something bigger than yourself,
absolutely.
which is very tough to do. You know, if you're an A-type person, what's bigger than me, right?
Yeah.
And if there's something bigger, I need to beat it, or I need to, be equal to it, or some silly thing.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree, Rick. And it just shows up in so many ways. like, something happens at work, right? And you feel like you're due some kind of credit or some kind of acknowledgement or consideration. And then you become bothered about it. Okay, I guess you're back on the wheel, and then you telling everybody else about it, and you are losing sleep at night about it. I have someone, a colleague who is dealing with a home issue, and they are ruminating about paint color and ruminating and not getting any sleep. I'm like, pick a color already, like, like this is not a big deal. Let's pick a color. And I'm being a little sarcastic about it, but I do the same thing. Like when I lost the keys to my car that I was trying to sell, I'm in the studio with Rick, and I mean with Brian and Pete, and they both are doctors. They literally are doing medical procedures that are saving people's lives with respect to aneurysms and strokes, and they're talking about a medical case. And here I am interrupting them. I can't find my keys where they are. I left them over here. I've been looking at them for all day. And those guys couldn't have been kinder, Rick. They're like, hey, Keith, and did you check your pockets? I was like, yeah. Did you check your backpack? What about your car? I'm going back looking at the car. They're back talking about how to save patients. I'll come back and like, guys, I checked my car. I'm oblivious to what's going on. And then finally, Pete says to me, after carrying on for an hour like this, interrupting their conversation as they're talking about different interventions they could perform, they finally come back and say, man, Pete, I'm talking about these keys. Like, I guess I should just accept it and just go to Toyota and pay the $500 for experience, like, or keep suffering. He's like, you don't have to stop suffering. He's like, you can keep right on suffering just the way you are. You can stay literally on that wheel if that's what you want to do. And so it was really that whole idea that I got on that wheel of suffering and was unaware of it. Like it's so seductive. It's so easy to do because we've been doing it for so long that it's a while before we wake up and become conscious again, unless what you're saying, like you're practicing awareness. That there's some, for me, there's a technique that I use, and the technique is when I feel myself not feeling joy inside, I had to really become attuned to it. Like, I don't feel peaceful.
Mm.
Oh, I must have got on the wheel for a second. Let me get back off. And then as soon as I get off, I'm fine again. I'm holding resentment or grudge about something that I perceived as a slight. Someone didn't say good morning to me, didn't say it the way that I want to say it. I told someone I love them. They didn't tell me I love them back, love me back. The silliness of it all. And I'm back on the wheel, just like that, Rick. And
That's
then
so
I've
true.
learned to just let it go. So I'm mostly off the wheel these days, but occasionally I get back on it. So Rick, if we're together and you see me on the wheel, it's like, I don't know if you know it, but you dropped off for a second. Did you get back on that wheel? Like, Rick, pull my coattails to it, man.
Oh, Keith, that's great, Keith, man. I love that. How did you start realizing that you were more peaceful off the wheel? How did that come about?
Uh, I just would I'd just be bothered about something, and I would notice it over a period of time. And it was the slightest things, Rick, slightest things. I would feel my heart getting close. Like, so almost, I like to be on time for things. And especially like things that I'm like leading or in charge of. And what's funny is that, like, let's say I tell people, hey, let's show up at 6:20. They show up at 6:20, but I showed up at 6:10. I'm like, why is everybody not here yet? Like, but I told them what time to show up. And then every time they come in, a minute after I did, the resentment grows and my heart closes more and more. I mean, and so it was noticing that. And I'm
Yeah.
telling myself, like, dude, get yourself together. You said 6:20. Don't you even start, don't even think about having an attitude to anybody until 6:30. Like, get yourself together. But here's what's funny. Somebody tells me 6:20, I show up at 6:25, I want grace. I want them to give me a lot of grace. So I started noticing these things about me that I was the one who was having problems. You can't handle somebody showing up on time. You can't handle somebody showing up late. Like I mean, what's wrong with you? Like you can't handle that. I mean, if that's the things that are bothering you, you don't have enough problems in your life. If those trivial things are bothering you. And so I started letting go of all those things. Like, man, get a bigger problem to be upset about, not that. And what I found was no problem is big enough for me to get my inner peace up for it. I don't care. I mean, when the business was was on the brink of not continuing, when I lost when Mayo Clinic let me go, and I started volunteering again, when relationship ended, when friends went a different direction and our friendship ended, it's part of my journey. I started making all of that like not a problem. I'm accepting it 100%. So I started noticing it, Rick, when I started to not be peaceful inside. That became my barometer of I wasn't peaceful inside and I need to do something about it. And it wasn't about changing other people. As a matter of fact, I wanted people to stay exactly the way they were so that I could get the full lesson from this. I didn't want them to change and have better behavior. I didn't want any of that because it would have been about them changing their behavior. It wasn't about me being able to handle the behavior no matter how it shows up. So I needed to get full of that because I would see the behavior again. And I didn't want to have to go through learning this lesson again. Let me learn it one time. Let me learn how to deal with this one time. And when I say deal with it, deal with me one time. And then I'm good. Then however it shows up. An example of this happened just the other day. There's this guy that we were playing pickleball with, and he wanted to, he said, "Hey, there's a guy here I want you to meet. He's somewhere around here. He has Tourette's. He loves to use the N-word." And I'm like, what part of you thinks that I want to that I'd be okay
This will be
meeting
so
a
much
guy
fun.
who's got Tourette's and everything out of his mouth is? And I was like, you know what? I said, you know what? I said, you know what? I'm going to be peaceful in the face of that too.
Oh
Saying
boy.
I'm
Yeah.
not. What my peace is conditional. That as long as you don't say the N-word, I can stay peaceful. No, even then too. And so I just really start to work on myself with everything that shows up. Like that's what I'm working on, and I just kept doing it all the time, And what I found was the things that used to bother me don't bother me anymore, and my peace is not conditional.
Yeah, Keith, that's a beautiful thing. I love the Tourette's with the N word, and you
Yeah,
put yourself right
yeah,
in the crosshairs
yeah.
of your biggest inflammatory
Exactly,
element. It could be,
exactly. And I'm
and
looking
you wanted to do it just to test yourself.
exactly. I'm looking at this guy. He's like, what
That's
about
so.
him? Like, man, I don't know. Maybe he can't see it. I don't know. Maybe there is a such thing as colorblind. Like he can't see it. Like, but I'm like, hey, it's all good, man. It's all good. That's my path is to be loving and kind. I said I wanted to be loving and kind no matter how people showed up.
No exception.
Let's see if I was serious about it. Let's see
That's
if I
right.
was serious about it. And I was.
Hey,
And so,
I wanted to ask you, we go through these podcasts, and we've done so many of them. I think it would be really helpful for the viewers who look at you and say, man, I really would like to get what he has gotten. And I know, our little talks about how we screwed up in life and how vulnerable we were and how we got kicked in the head and all of that is helpful. But you have some people, some authors, psychology insight guys, for want of a better word, that have helped you along the way, just as I have. Who are a couple of those that you could recommend to people to read, who want to have the kind of life and the kind of inner peace that you have?
thanks, Rick. Eckhart Tolle, is on the list for me. Wayne Dyer. You introduced me to Tara Brach. So that was really great, regarding relationships, interacting with people, was fantastic. Michael Singer I'm a big fan of Michael Singer with Untethered Soul, the surrender experiment, being untethered at work, as well as his most recent book, all of that is part of it. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning was huge for me. Just those kinds of books, man. Brian Chung has given me a ton of books, just all of that. And there are a lot of other books that people use in their relationships that I know are incredibly helpful for them. What I found is, and they were helpful for me, like the Four Agreements and understanding people's love languages. What's interesting about it, that those books were great and they got me to a point to where I could start working on myself in that way. But what I found is that the books like the Wayne Dyer, the Michael Singer, the books that you've recommended for me, Viktor Frankl, and all those make it so that I don't have to think about the Four Agreements. I don't have to think about what other people need to do or how they need to do it. All I think about is what I'm doing, what I'm committed to. And it's amazing when I put all of the ownership on me being committed and being unconditional about this path that I'm on. I require little to nothing from other people to do anything. And I can still have a great time. Like I didn't need the guy I didn't need to like dress him down about, man, what made you think that I want to meet somebody with Tourette's who loves to say the N-word? What made you think that was okay? What made you think I want to listen to you tell me about a Halloween party where you learn about shoe polish and blackface? What made you think that was okay for me to like, I didn't have to do any of that, Rick. I'm just showing up, serving the moments in front of me, being kind, and not being bothered by those things or being distracted by them, being taken off my path. So those authors and the way that they lived, when I think about Nelson Mandela and the way that he did it, the way that Gandhi did it, like, wow, like really? And I can't handle somebody telling a joke? Come on, man.
Well, that's a beautiful thing, Keith. Very powerful, very, very helpful to people for sure. Those are amazing, amazing people with insight. And I think there are a lot of folks who have suffered greatly, and they're out there without an oar in the middle of the sea. And these kinds of books are the oars to kind of help you get closer to the shore and at least experiment with things that maybe we haven't considered before, and trying them out, and hopefully that brings some love into your life and some peace and some sense of well-being. I think that's so important for people not to ignore. It's just like another kind of fitness. You pay attention to your nutrition, you do your cardio, you do your RT, and then you have to do a little bit of work on your psychology and your emotional state and your maturity and your understanding of others and monitoring your situation. That's all inner work, and that's just as important.
Yeah, absolutely, Rick. Thank you so much, Rick, for a great show. I love you.
I love you, buddy. Thank you for sharing those books. Boy, that's terrific.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.